The audience didn't just clap that night, they screamed. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why a quiet Filipino boy with trembling hands left the entire AGT theater in shock, and even Simon Cowell speechless. So stay with me until the very end, because this isn't just about a performance, it's about a dream that refused to die. And if stories like this inspire you, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because you won't want to miss the next unbelievable moment. The lights inside the massive auditorium of America's Got Talent dimmed slowly, and a soft murmur spread across the crowd. Backstage stood 12-year-old Marco Reyes from Cebu, Philippines. He wasn't tall. He wasn't flashy. He wore a simple white button-down shirt tucked neatly into black slacks, his hair combed carefully to the side the way his mother used to style it before school. His hands shook as he adjusted the old silver necklace around his neck, the only thing his father had left him before passing away 3 years earlier. Marco's story didn't begin on a grand stage. It began in a tiny one-room house where the roof leaked during monsoon season. His father had been a jeepney driver who loved old American music. Every Sunday morning, their house would echo with the powerful voice of Elvis Presley blasting from a worn-out radio. Marco was only 6 when he first tried to imitate the deep, soulful sound. His father would laugh and clap, calling him "my little Elvis." But life changed quickly. When his father fell ill, the medical bills swallowed their savings. Marco watched his mother work double shifts at a laundry shop, her hands cracked and red from detergent. The radio eventually broke. The music stopped. But Marco didn't. He practiced quietly at night, listening to old Elvis songs on a borrowed phone with cheap earphones pressed tightly against his ears. He didn't just copy the voice, he studied it. The emotion. The pauses. The way Elvis would close his eyes during a high note. Marco didn't want to be Elvis. He wanted to make people feel the way his father once did. When auditions for America's Got Talent opened internationally, Marco's music teacher encouraged him to send a video. They recorded it in a classroom after school. No fancy lights. No studio microphones. Just Marco, a karaoke track, and a dream. Weeks later, an email arrived. He had been invited to audition in front of the judges. Now he stood on the biggest stage of his life. The host gently guided him onto the stage as the crowd offered polite applause. He looked so small under the bright lights. When asked his name, his voice cracked slightly. "My name is Marco Reyes. I'm from the Philippines." Simon Cowell leaned forward, curious. Beside him sat Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel. Simon raised an eyebrow. "And what will you be singing tonight, Marco?" Marco swallowed hard. "I'll be singing an Elvis Presley song, sir." The audience reacted immediately, some excited, some skeptical. Elvis songs were dangerous territory. They're classics. They demand power, soul, and charisma. Many have tried. Many have failed. Simon gave a half smile. "Okay. This should be interesting." The music began. A slow, familiar instrumental filled the room. Marco closed his eyes. The first note left his mouth, and time seemed to freeze. It wasn't just good. It wasn't just impressive for a kid. It was hauntingly powerful. Deep. Rich. Mature beyond his years. The tone carried the same warmth and raw emotion that once shook stadiums decades ago. Gasps echoed through the crowd. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. Heidi's eyes widened. Howie mouthed, "Wow." Marco didn't move around much. He didn't need to. His voice did all the work. Every lyric felt personal, like he was singing directly to someone he missed. Halfway through the song, his voice cracked, not from fear, but from emotion. And instead of weakening the performance, it made it real. The audience began to clap along. Some stood up before the song even finished. And then came the final note. He held it longer than anyone expected a 12-year-old could. The sound filled every corner of the theater. When he finally stopped, there was a split second of silence. Then chaos. The entire audience jumped to their feet, screaming, cheering, clapping so loudly the cameras visibly shook. It wasn't just applause, it was disbelief. It was awe. Marco looked stunned. He hadn't expected this. Tears welled up in his eyes as he searched the judges' faces. Simon Cowell, known for his brutal honesty, sat completely still. For a moment, he said nothing. And that silence felt louder than the cheers. Finally, Simon leaned into the microphone. "Marco," he began slowly, "I've heard thousands of singers perform Elvis songs on this stage. Most of them try to imitate him. But what you did, you honored him. You made it your own." The crowd roared again. Simon continued, "That wasn't just an impression. That was a performance." Heidi was already on her feet. "Your voice is a gift. And your heart, we felt it." Sophia wiped away tears. "You remind me why we love music." Howie smiled widely. "You just turned this whole room into a concert." Marco could barely speak. "I sang that for my dad," he whispered. The audience melted. Simon looked down for a moment, then back up at Marco. "Your dad would be very, very proud." For yes came quickly. But the night wasn't over. As the cheers continued, something unexpected happened. Simon reached toward the golden buzzer. The crowd screamed before he even touched it. He paused dramatically, looking at Marco. "You came all the way from the Philippines," Simon said. "And I think you deserve to go all the way." He slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti exploded from above, raining down like a dream made visible. Marco dropped to his knees, sobbing. His mother rushed onto the stage, holding him tightly as the crowd chanted his name. In that moment, it wasn't about fame. It wasn't about winning. It was about a boy who refused to let hardship silence his song. Back home in Cebu, neighbors gathered around small televisions to watch the replay. His old music teacher cried openly. Children who once teased him for singing old songs suddenly looked at him differently. Marco's journey didn't magically erase every struggle. His family still faced challenges. But doors opened. Opportunities appeared. More importantly, hope returned. And that's the power of believing in your gift even when the world is quiet. Marco once said in an interview that he never wanted to replace Elvis. He just wanted to make someone smile the way his father used to when the radio played on Sunday mornings. That night on America's Got Talent, he made millions smile. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring journeys just like Marco's. Because sometimes, the biggest voices come from the smallest stages, and sometimes, all it takes is one song to change everything. And remember, your background does not define your future. Your struggles do not silence your dream. Somewhere out there is a stage waiting for you. Keep practicing. Keep believing. And when your moment comes, sing like the world is listening. The audience didn't just clap that night, they screamed so loud it felt like the walls of the theater would shake apart. And by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly why a shy Filipino boy walked onto the stage and walked off as a global sensation. So stay with me until the very last second, because what happened left even Simon Cowell completely stunned. And if stories like this inspire you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the next dreamer might surprise you even more. The massive stage of America's Got Talent was glowing under blinding white lights. The crowd buzzed with excitement, but backstage stood a 13-year-old boy who looked like he might disappear if the wind blew too hard. His name was Daniel Cruz, born and raised in a small coastal town in the Philippines where fishing boats outnumbered cars and dreams often felt too big for the horizon. Daniel wasn't the loudest kid in school. He wasn't the most confident either. In fact, he had been bullied for years for loving old music. While other kids blasted pop hits on their phones, Daniel listened to vinyl recordings of Elvis Presley that his grandfather had preserved like treasure. The scratches on those records didn't bother him. To Daniel, each crackle felt alive, like history whispering secrets. His father had left when he was young. His mother worked overseas as a domestic helper, sending money home every month. Daniel was raised mostly by his grandmother, who would sit beside him during brownouts, fanning him gently while he sang in the dark. "You have a gift," she would tell him. "But gifts are nothing without courage." Courage was the one thing Daniel struggled to find. When he uploaded a simple video of himself singing an Elvis classic from his tiny bedroom, he never expected it to travel beyond his town. The walls behind him were unfinished cement. The microphone was cheap. But the voice carried something raw and powerful. Within weeks, the clip gained attention. Eventually, an invitation arrived to audition for America's Got Talent. Now he stood on that legendary stage. The host smiled warmly. "What's your name, young man?" "Daniel Cruz," he said softly. "And where are you from?" "The Philippines, sir." The audience applauded politely. Simon Cowell leaned forward, intrigued but cautious. Beside him were Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel. Simon asked, "And what will you be singing?" Daniel took a deep breath. "An Elvis Presley song." A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. Elvis songs were sacred territory. They required range, charisma, and emotional depth. For a 13-year-old boy, it seemed almost impossible. Simon gave a slight smirk. "All right. Let's hear it." The instrumental began slow, dramatic, instantly recognizable. Daniel closed his eyes. The first note left his mouth like thunder rolling across the ocean. It wasn't imitation. It wasn't parody. It was powerful. Deep. Shockingly mature. The kind of voice that makes you forget the singer's age and remember only the feeling. The audience gasped audibly. Heidi's jaw dropped. Sophia gripped the edge of the table. Howie's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. Daniel didn't try to copy Elvis's movements. He stood still, letting the emotion rise through him. Every lyric sounded personal, like he was singing to his absent father. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice never did. Halfway through the performance, something shifted. The crowd began clapping in rhythm. A woman in the front row stood up. Then another. By the time Daniel reached the chorus again, half the theater was already on its feet. Simon, known for his poker face, had stopped smirking. When Daniel hit the final high note, he held it longer than anyone expected. The note soared, filled the room, and settled into silence so complete you could hear someone inhale. And then, the explosion. Screams. Cheers. A full standing ovation. The kind of reaction performers dream about their entire lives. Daniel's eyes filled with tears as he looked toward the judges. Simon leaned into the microphone slowly. The room quieted instantly. "You know," Simon began, "I've heard a lot of people attempt Elvis songs on this stage. Most fail." The audience tensed. Daniel swallowed hard. "But you didn't try to be Elvis. You brought your own soul into it." The crowd erupted again. Heidi stood up. "That was unbelievable." Sophia wiped her eyes. "You made us feel something very special." Howie nodded enthusiastically. "You have something rare, Daniel." Daniel could barely speak. "I sing because music makes me feel close to my mom and dad." The entire room softened. Simon paused for a moment that felt like forever. Then he looked at the golden buzzer. The audience began screaming before he even moved. Simon smiled slightly. "Daniel, sometimes a performance isn't just about talent. It's about heart. And you have both." He slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down like sunlight breaking through clouds. Daniel collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed. Backstage, his grandmother cried uncontrollably as cameras captured every second. In that moment, the shy boy from a coastal town wasn't invisible anymore. He was heard. He was seen. The performance went viral within hours. Social media flooded with comments from people around the world saying they had chills. Many said they hadn't felt that kind of emotion from an Elvis song in years. But what mattered most wasn't the fame. It was the message. Daniel later said in an interview, "I was always afraid people would laugh at me for loving old music. But I realized, if you love something, you shouldn't hide it. That's the lesson we all need sometimes. Your passion might not be popular. Your dream might not make sense to others. But if it burns inside you, it deserves a chance." From a small coastal town in the Philippines to the biggest talent stage in the world, Daniel proved that courage can transform fear into triumph. So if this story moved you, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable journeys. Because somewhere out there, another quiet dreamer is practicing in a small room, waiting for their moment. And when that moment comes, just like Daniel, may they step into the light and make the world scream. The crowd didn't just cheer that night, they roared like they had witnessed something impossible. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why a quiet Filipino boy walked onto the stage as an unknown dreamer and walked off leaving the entire arena shaking. So don't skip a second, because what happened next stunned everyone, especially Simon Cowell. And if stories like this inspire you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the next unbelievable moment might be even bigger. The lights inside America's Got Talent flickered softly as the host announced the next contestant. Backstage stood 11-year-old Rafi Mendoza from Davao City, Philippines. He was small for his age, wearing a neatly pressed black blazer over a white shirt, sleeves slightly too long for his arms. His hair was styled carefully in a classic sideswept look, inspired by the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis Presley. But Rafi's journey to that stage was anything but glamorous. He grew up in a modest home made of concrete blocks and tin roofing. During heavy rains, water would drip into buckets placed carefully around the room. His father worked as a tricycle driver. His mother sold homemade snacks outside a local school. Money was always tight. Some nights, dinner was simple rice and soy sauce. But no matter how difficult life became, music filled their home. Rafi discovered Elvis through an old DVD his uncle brought from overseas. The first time he saw Elvis perform, he was mesmerized. The voice. The confidence. The energy. From that moment, Rafi practiced every single day. He would stand in front of a cracked mirror holding a hairbrush as a microphone, trying to match the tone and emotion. At school, classmates teased him. "Why don't you sing something modern?" they laughed. "Nobody listens to Elvis anymore." But Rafi didn't stop. When his mother fell sick and medical bills began piling up, Rafi made a quiet promise: one day, he would sing on a big stage and make her proud. A viral video of Rafi singing at a barangay festival changed everything. Someone uploaded it online. Within weeks, it reached producers from America's Got Talent. An invitation followed. Now he stood on one of the biggest stages in the world. The host smiled. "What's your name?" "Rafael Mendoza, but you can call me Rafi," he said shyly. "And where are you from?" "From the Philippines." The audience clapped warmly. At the judges' table sat Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel. Simon leaned forward. "And what are you singing?" Rafi took a deep breath. "An Elvis Presley song, sir." The crowd reacted immediately, excited but skeptical. Elvis songs were risky. They demanded power, range, and emotion. For an 11-year-old boy, it seemed almost unfair. Simon nodded slowly. "Okay, Rafi. Let's see what you've got." The music began, a slow, bluesy instrumental that instantly brought nostalgia into the room. Rafi closed his eyes. The first note left his mouth, deep, smooth, controlled. The audience gasped in unison. It wasn't just good. It was shockingly mature. His voice carried weight far beyond his years, rich with emotion and subtle vibrato. He didn't overdo it. He didn't try to exaggerate. He simply sang, with heart. Heidi's eyes widened. Sophia leaned back in disbelief. Howie mouthed, "No way." Halfway through the song, Raffi stepped slightly closer to the mic and delivered the chorus with a power that sent chills through the entire arena. His voice soared effortlessly, echoing through the theater like something timeless had returned. The audience began clapping in rhythm. Then people started standing up one by one, row by row. Simon's expression changed. The skeptical look was gone. Now he was fully focused. As Raffi approached the final note, his voice trembled slightly, not from weakness, but emotion. He was thinking about his mother watching from backstage. He held the note longer than anyone expected. The entire room held its breath. Silence. Then the explosion. Screams. Applause. A standing ovation so loud it felt like thunder crashing indoors. Raffi stood frozen, tears forming in his eyes. Simon slowly leaned into his microphone. The crowd quieted. "You know," Simon began, "when you said you were singing Elvis, I was worried." The audience laughed nervously. Raffi swallowed. "But that was extraordinary." The crowd erupted again. Heidi stood up immediately. "Your voice is beautiful. You are so special." Sophia wiped away tears. "I felt every word." Howie nodded. "You have something rare, Raffi. That doesn't happen often." Raffi finally spoke softly. "I sing for my mom. She's very sick. I want her to see that dreams can come true." The entire arena melted. Simon looked at Raffi for a long moment. Then he glanced at the golden buzzer. The audience began screaming before he even moved. Simon smiled faintly. "Raffi, you came all the way from the Philippines. And tonight, you reminded us why we love music." He pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down like sunlight bursting through clouds. Raffi covered his face as tears streamed down. His mother rushed onto the stage, hugging him tightly as the crowd continued cheering. In that moment, it wasn't about competition. It wasn't about fame. It was about hope. Clips of the performance went viral worldwide. People from different countries commented that they had chills. Some said it was the best Elvis tribute they had ever heard from someone so young. Others said they cried without even knowing why. But Raffi later said something simple in an interview: "I didn't try to be Elvis. I just tried to sing with love." And that's the message. You don't have to be the biggest. You don't have to be the loudest. You just have to be real. From a small house with a leaking roof to one of the most famous stages in the world, Raffi proved that talent can rise from anywhere. That passion can outshine doubt. That even a quiet voice can shake an entire arena. So if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring journeys like this one. Because somewhere out there, another kid is singing into a hairbrush, dreaming of a stage they've never seen. And maybe, just maybe, they'll be the next voice that makes the world scream before the first note even echoed through the theater. Something felt different. The crowd didn't know his name yet. The judges weren't expecting a miracle. But by the end of those 3 minutes, the entire arena would be on its feet, screaming so loud it drowned out the music itself. And even Simon Cowell, the man who rarely looks surprised, would sit there completely stunned. So stay with me until the very end, because this isn't just a performance, it's a story about faith, family, and a dream that refused to give up. And if you love stories that give you chills, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like this deserve to be remembered. The stage of America's Got Talent was glowing under 1,000 bright lights when the host walked out and introduced the next contestant. From the side of the stage, a small figure stepped forward. 14-year-old Joshua Villanueva from Manila, Philippines. He looked nervous, really nervous. His hands were clasped tightly together, and his black leather shoes looked freshly polished but slightly worn at the edges. He wore a fitted cream-colored jacket with a subtle sparkle under the lights, paired with black pants. His hair was styled in a soft pompadour, clearly inspired by his musical hero, Elvis Presley. But Joshua's life was nothing like the glamorous stage he now stood on. He grew up in a crowded neighborhood where houses were pressed tightly together, and karaoke machines echoed through narrow streets every weekend. His father was a construction worker who sometimes went months without steady pay. His mother sold vegetables in a small roadside stall. Some nights, Joshua would do his homework under a dim bulb while his parents whispered about unpaid bills. Music was his escape. When Joshua was 8, his grandfather showed him old videos of Elvis performing. Joshua didn't understand English very well at first, but he understood emotion. He understood the way Elvis closed his eyes when he sang. The way he made people feel like they mattered. Joshua began practicing every single day. Not because he wanted fame, but because singing made him feel strong. In school, he was shy and often overlooked. Some classmates teased him for singing old man songs. But every night, he would stand in front of a cracked mirror and perform like he was already on a world stage. Then one evening at a local talent show, a tourist recorded Joshua singing and uploaded it online. Within weeks, it spread across social media. Messages poured in. Eventually, an email arrived, an invitation to audition for America's Got Talent. Now here he was. Simon Cowell sat at the judges' table beside Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel. Simon leaned forward slightly. "Joshua, what are you going to sing for us today?" Joshua swallowed. "An Elvis Presley song, sir." The audience reacted immediately. Some cheered. Some whispered nervously. Elvis songs were risky. They required soul, power, and charisma. And Joshua didn't look like someone who could command an entire arena. Simon nodded. "Okay. Let's hear it." The music started slow, dramatic, instantly recognizable. Joshua closed his eyes. The first note came out smooth and low, and the entire room froze. It wasn't just good. It was electrifying. His voice had depth and richness that didn't match his age. There was control in every phrase, emotion in every word. He wasn't copying Elvis, he was channeling the same raw feeling in his own way. Heidi's mouth slowly fell open. Howie leaned back in disbelief. Sophia placed her hand over her heart. Joshua's confidence grew with. The audience thought they were ready. They had seen magicians, dancers, comedians, and powerhouse vocalists walk across that stage before. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared them for what was about to happen when a quiet Filipino boy stepped into the spotlight and opened his mouth. By the end of this story, you'll understand why the entire arena erupted into screams, and why Simon Cowell sat there blinking in disbelief. So don't skip ahead, because the final moment is the one that changed everything. And if you love powerful, emotional journeys like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You never know whose dream you might witness next. The glowing stage of America's Got Talent shimmered under deep blue lights as the host announced the next act. From backstage walked 12-year-old Miguel Santiago from Quezon City, Philippines. Miguel wasn't flashy. He wore a simple white suit jacket with subtle rhinestones along the collar, black trousers, and polished shoes that reflected the stage lights. His dark hair was styled in a neat pompadour, inspired by the legendary Elvis Presley. But beneath the confident outfit, his hands trembled slightly. Because Miguel wasn't just singing for fun. He was singing for survival. Back home, Miguel lived in a cramped apartment above his aunt's small grocery store. His father had passed away when he was 9. His mother worked long shifts at a factory, often coming home exhausted but still managing to smile whenever Miguel sang. Music had always been their comfort. Every Sunday, his father used to play Elvis songs on an old speaker while cooking breakfast. Miguel would stand on a plastic chair and imitate the moves, making his parents laugh. After his father's passing, the house grew quiet. Too quiet. Until one evening, Miguel sang the same Elvis song his father loved most, and for the first time in months, his mother smiled through her tears. That was the moment he decided he would never stop singing. When a video of him performing at a local mall competition went viral, it eventually caught the attention of producers from America's Got Talent. The invitation felt unreal. Flying to America felt impossible. But the community gathered donations, neighbors contributed what little they could, and somehow, Miguel made it there. Now, he stood in front of 4 judges: Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel. Simon looked curious but cautious. "Miguel, why did you choose this song?" Miguel swallowed. "Because it reminds me of my dad." The audience softened instantly. Simon nodded slowly. "All right. Let's hear it." The music began, slow, soulful, instantly recognizable to anyone who loved Elvis. Miguel closed his eyes. The first note came out deep and controlled, with a richness that made the audience sit up straight. It wasn't the voice of a child trying to copy a legend. It was something genuine. Emotional. Raw. Heidi's eyes widened. Howie leaned forward. Sophia pressed her hand to her chest. Miguel didn't move much at first. He let the voice carry the performance. Each lyric felt personal, like he was singing directly to someone he missed. When he reached the chorus, his voice soared, smooth yet powerful, echoing across the massive auditorium. The audience began clapping in rhythm. Miguel's confidence grew. He stepped slightly forward, lifted the microphone, and delivered a vocal run so unexpected that gasps filled the room. It wasn't flashy, it was heartfelt. Backstage, his mother watched from behind a curtain, tears streaming down her face. As the final verse approached, Miguel's voice trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from emotion. He remembered the Sunday mornings. The laughter. The music. He took a deep breath and delivered the final note. Long. Strong. Unbreakable. For one heartbeat, there was silence. Then the arena exploded. People jumped to their feet screaming. The applause was thunderous. Some audience members were wiping away tears. It wasn't just appreciation, it was connection. Miguel stood frozen, overwhelmed. Simon Cowell didn't speak immediately. He simply stared at the boy in front of him, processing what he had just witnessed. Finally, he leaned into the microphone. "I didn't expect that," Simon admitted honestly. The crowd laughed softly. "You know, when young contestants choose Elvis songs, it can go very wrong." Miguel's heart pounded. "But you," Simon continued, "you sang it with heart. And that's what matters." The crowd roared again. Heidi stood up. "You are so special." Howie nodded enthusiastically. "That was incredible control for someone your age." Sophia wiped away tears. "I felt your father in that performance." Miguel's voice shook as he replied, "I just wanted him to hear me." The room melted. Simon paused for a long second. Then he looked down at the golden buzzer. The audience began screaming before his hand even moved. Simon gave a small smile. "Miguel, this is why we have this stage." And he pressed it. Golden confetti rained down from above, sparkling under the lights like falling stars. Miguel dropped to his knees, crying. His mother ran onto the stage and hugged him tightly as the entire audience continued cheering. In that moment, it wasn't about competition anymore. It was about a son honoring his father. A family finding hope again. A community seeing that their belief had meant something. The clip spread online within hours. Millions watched it. Comments poured in from people saying they felt goosebumps. Some said they hadn't heard an Elvis tribute that emotional in years. Others said it reminded them of someone they had lost. Miguel later said in an interview, "I didn't try to sound like Elvis. I just tried to sing with love." And maybe that's the real lesson. Talent is powerful. But heart is unforgettable. From a small apartment above a grocery store to one of the biggest stages in the world, Miguel proved that your circumstances do not define your destiny. Your pain can become your power. Your memories can become your strength. So if this story touched you even a little, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories just like this one. Because somewhere, right now, another child is singing in a small room, dreaming of a moment like this. And when their time comes, maybe the world will scream for them too. The crowd was expecting something good that night. Maybe even great. But what they witnessed instead was unforgettable. A moment so powerful that the audience didn't just clap, they screamed. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why even Simon Cowell sat there completely speechless. So stay with me until the very last second, because the final reaction is something you won't want to miss. And if stories like this give you chills, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the next dreamer might be even more surprising. The stage of America's Got Talent glowed under soft golden lights as the host called out the next name. Please welcome 13-year-old Adrian Flores from the Philippines. A slim boy walked onto the stage, adjusting the cuffs of his light blue vintage-style blazer. His black trousers were neatly pressed, and his dark hair was styled into a classic pompadour that subtly paid tribute to Elvis Presley. He looked calm, but his fingers trembled slightly as he gripped the microphone. Adrian wasn't from a big city. He grew up in a small fishing village in Batangas, where the sea breeze carried the smell of salt and diesel from fishing boats. His father was a fisherman who often left before sunrise and returned after sunset, exhausted but smiling. His mother ran a tiny sari-sari store from the front of their home. Money was never stable. Storms sometimes destroyed boats. Fishing seasons were unpredictable. There were weeks when they didn't know how they would cover school fees. But there was always music. Adrian's grandfather owned an old cassette player. One day, while cleaning, Adrian found a dusty tape labeled Elvis. Curious, he pressed play. The voice that poured out of those worn-out speakers felt larger than life, rich, emotional, commanding. From that day on, Adrian was hooked. He didn't understand all the English lyrics at first, but he understood the feeling. He practiced every afternoon after school, standing barefoot on their wooden floor, pretending the broomstick was a microphone. Neighbors would gather outside their window just to listen. At school, though, things weren't as kind. Some classmates laughed. "Why do you sing grandpa songs?" they teased. "Sing something cool." Adrian would smile and shrug, but at night, he practiced even harder. When a teacher secretly recorded one of his performances during a school program and uploaded it online, something unexpected happened. The video spread. Comments flooded in. Soon, producers from America's Got Talent reached out. The village couldn't believe it. They held a small fundraiser to help his family with travel expenses. Fishermen donated part of their daily earnings. His mother cried the night they received the tickets. Now here he was. At the judges' table sat Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel. Simon leaned forward. "Adrian, why America's Got Talent?" Adrian took a deep breath. "Because I want to help my family, and I want to show that old music still has power." The audience applauded warmly. "And what will you be singing?" Simon asked. "An Elvis Presley song." A ripple of excitement and nervous whispers passed through the crowd. Elvis songs were legendary and risky. Simon nodded. "All right. Let's see what happens." The music started. A slow, soulful instrumental filled the theater. Adrian closed his eyes. The first note came out low and smooth, and instantly, the room changed. The sound was warm, controlled, and unexpectedly mature. Heads snapped up. Conversations stopped. The audience leaned in. "Hey!